Imagine trying to sleep through a snowstorm, with no fire, no heater, and nothing between you and the wind but stone. Medieval families did it all the time. The trick wasn't stubbornness, it was strategy. When winter hit Europe, people didn't sit above ground like targets waiting for frostbite. They got clever. They went down. The earth became their ally, a giant, steady blanket wrapped around them. Just 3 or 4 feet below the surface, temperatures stayed far more stable than the bone-numbing air above, while the world on top swung from day chill to night dagger. The soil kept a quiet, reliable warmth. They didn't stop at digging pits and hoping for mercy. Families carved out underground rooms with thick mud and stone walls that soaked up daytime heat and bled it back through the dark hours. Medieval thermal batteries, charged by sunlight and body. Wood looked pretty, sure, but for storing heat, it was as useful as a sieve is for water. The smart move was building partially underground and partially above, enough to keep the home from disappearing entirely into the hill hobbitish. Maybe, but cozy hobbitish. The earthworms broke the hateful wind that could turn a normal evening into a survival test. Dense walls acted like bouncers, slowing and sifting every draft that tried to sneak in. Your walls took the beating, so your body didn't have to. And they did it with whatever the land handed them: mud from the stream, stones from the field, branches cut from the hedgerow. No medieval hardware store run required. They even solved the ground chill that crawled up through floors. Placement mattered. Layers mattered. A house set into a slope, with floors built to interrupt the cold's upward creep, meant you stayed warm above while the frost sulked below. This wasn't dig a hole and pray. It was a planned system that turned the Earth's insulation into survival tech. Of course, even a smart burrow needed smarter walls. Medieval builders didn't play around. Forget flimsy panels that let every breeze dance through. Their secret was stuffing those walls with anything that captured still air. Mud, straw, animal dung. Guess dung bee. 'Cause when the cold can kill you, you stop judging insulation and start using what works. The craft had a name: wattle and daub. First, weave thin branches between posts to create a basket-like body, then smear on a mix of clay, mud, straw, and whatever fibrous filler you could gather. The woven lattice trapped little pockets of unmoving air, nature's best insulator, while the clay sealed the skin. Those clay layers didn't just stick everything together, they killed drafts. One hairline gap could turn a warm room into an icebox. They learned to layer like pros: a straw-heavy inner coat for insulation, a dense clay middle for wind stopping, and an outer skin designed to shed water. Dark Ages. Only if you weren't paying attention. Floors, earthen yes, but topped with thick, dry straw. Not for aesthetics. For survival. That straw created a barrier between bare feet and the cold climbing up from below. Keep it clean and swap it out often, and you had a simple, effective, insulating mattress under your life. Thickness mattered. So did mass. Many walls ran 2 feet thick or more, and it wasn't to brag. Thermal mass is slow, patient heat. Those big walls swallowed warmth by day and handed it back by night, like a house-sized heating pad built right in. But the real test came after sunset. When the air sharpened and the wind turned mean, even the best walls couldn't carry the whole load. That's when the most reliable heater in history went to work. Bodies. Medieval families weren't shy about it. Body heat is free heat, and it's effective. On brutal nights, everyone piled into one bed. Parents, children, grandparents, whoever lived under the roof. Privacy could wait for spring. Livestock often joined the party too. Not in the bed, but in the house: cows, pigs, chickens, living radiators that ate hay, made milk and eggs, and kicked out warmth. A cow throws off about as much heat as a small space heater. No wires required. Each person puts out roughly the heat of a 100-watt bulb. 5 or 6 people together, plus a few animals, and suddenly a freezing room becomes survivable. The trade-off: smell. Imagine sharing a bedroom with a goat and Uncle Bob. But nobody argued with warmth when the alternative was frostbite. Communities leaned into this logic when winter turned savage. Neighbors moved in together for a stretch. More bodies meant more heat and less fuel burned per head. The wise arranged themselves strategically. Children in the middle, where the warmth pooled. Bigger bodies at the edges to block drafts. Animals placed so their heat rose towards sleeping platforms. They didn't know the word thermodynamics, but they practiced it like experts. Modern survival instructors still teach the same idea because it works. They also understood the power of layers. Not the fashionable kind. The life or death kind. Every scrap of fabric had a purpose in winter. Shabby tunic, perfect base layer. Moth-nipped wool cloak, still warmer than the air. Households stockpiled cloth like people now stockpiled emergency paper goods. There was a method. Linen next to skin to wick sweat, wool over it to trap heat, then more of whatever they had, leather, fur, more wool, even pouches stuffed with scraps. 6 layers wasn't extreme. On the worst nights, it was the baseline. Each layer trapped a thin film of warm air, wrapping the body in stacked pockets of heat. Bedding followed the same rules. Straw wasn't dumped, it was handled. Thick, dry layers made a difference. Fresh straw every few weeks if possible. Even rags mattered. Torn cloth got packed between garments, quilted into crude but effective pads, or sewn into patchwork that turned nothing into something. Waste fabric in winter was the same as wasting warmth. Moisture control obsessed them, and for good reason. Damp was the enemy. Wet wool steals heat faster than you can make it tanned. The older folks layering sweaters indoors. It's not fussy. It's wisdom passed down from people who remembered when warm meant alive. Smart homes had layering stations by sleeping areas, extra blankets and cloaks laid out, ready to grab without fumbling in the dark and bleeding precious heat. Fire itself they treated like a science. Banking a fire wasn't throw wood on and see, it was technique. At night, they pulled hot coals and embers together and buried them under a thick blanket of ash. Sounds backward, cover heat to keep heat, but ash acted like a medieval thermostat. It slowed the burn, protected the glow, and held warmth till morning. At dawn, they brushed the ash aside and coaxed the embers with a breath. Flame. No wasting tinder and time. Small coals worked better than big logs for this trick. Large pieces burned bright and died fast, while little ones smoldered steady under ash, giving off gentle heat without smoky drama. Wood was sorted on purpose. Big rounds for cooking, small for banking, and yes, smoke mattered. Nobody wanted to sleep in a chamber that felt like a failed barbecue. A controlled, banked fire produced far less smoke than a roaring blaze. When your kitchen, bedroom, and living space were essentially the same room, that meant clearer eyes and fewer coughs. Managing the burn stretched fuel to winter. Wood wasn't endless, and gathering could be dangerous. Every log mattered. Done right, last night's reserves carried warmth into today. The art lay in the ash. Too little and your embers died. Too much and you suffocated them. Parents passed this skill like a family recipe. Kids learned by watching, trying, and getting scolded for wasting good coals. On nights when the logs were gone and the wind had teeth, those ash-hidden embers could be the line between we made it and we didn't. Heat management wasn't only about making warmth. It was about controlling air. A leaky house turns into a wind tunnel you can barely sleep in. But seal everything tight and you get condensation, rot, and smoke. They walked that knife edge. Heavy curtains turned from decoration into survival gear. Draped around beds, hung over doorways, pinned across windows. They created smaller, warmer zones, canvas forts,